Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have the most special guest ever. I actually realize right now we're on episode number 69. We got the man, the myth, the legend. This is one of the first guys I started following on Twitter. He wears a shirt less than I do, ladies and gentlemen. This man is a corporate emancipator. He formerly was an SEC college athlete, turned baseball pro, turned Google employee. Now he helps people escape that corporate life, gets people shredded all day without counting their calories. I love this guy to death. He's got a high IQ off the charts. You'll see that here in a minute. Alex Feinberg, welcome to the pod, brother.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Very excited to be here.
Man, it's always a pleasure when I get to chat with you, man. So I assume anybody who probably follows me follows you too, man, and they know a lot about you. But for anybody who doesn't, can you just give us like a little 2-minute rundown, who you are, what you're about, man?
Yes, Tyler said, in my former life, I was a baseball player. Like many Americans, I wanted to be a professional athlete when I grew up. Grew up at an upper middle class family, but my parents didn't do rich people things. So I didn't really know that there were any options after you graduated from college other than be athlete, entertainer, or employee. And I thought I'm going to be an athlete when I was younger. So I worked my ass off, multiple hours every day after school in high school. Got a scholarship to Vanderbilt, moved out of California where I initially grew up to play in the SEC. That was a really good cultural experience for me, kind of taking me out of secular California, moving me into the Bible Belt effectively. Spent 4 years there, got drafted by the Rockies in the 43rd round, which doesn't exist anymore. So I was an afterthought. Played a couple of years in their system, learned a lot of shortcuts in the process, learned how scouts thought, which is effectively how most people think. Heuristic-based judgments. They're not going to think very deeply. They're going to look at you and make snap judgments based on the characteristics that you have that they've seen in other people, which is effectively stereotyping, which is effectively how everybody thinks, whether they want to admit it or not. And so, my baseball career fizzled out, but I used these shortcuts that I observed about the human condition to get a job at a global macro hedge fund. Worked for a booster, a supporter of the Vanderbilt baseball program. First job was in Hong Kong. Never been to Hong Kong, didn't know anybody there except the fund manager, but he was a conspiracy theorist. It's pretty interesting working for the guy. Worked there for about a year and a half, decided that central banks around the world were going to keep interest rates low for a long period of time, and Silicon Valley was going to be the place that was going to benefit from that. So back in 2011, moved back home to Silicon Valley where I grew up. Elevator pitched my way into Google using the shortcuts that I teach other people, basically being in good shape, wearing a suit that fits me, and speaking well. Got that job in effectively 90 seconds after meeting the right people. Spent about 6 years working in 3 different roles at Google: sales, corporate strategy, product partnerships. When the crypto market started taking off in 2017, moved over to eventually work for a cryptocurrency exchange, doing business development for them. And the whole time I maintained my dedication to fitness because I realized that being in good shape and speaking well was one of the most effective ways to get paid more money than everybody else got paid doing the same job you did. And, that whole time I was not interested in being a fitness influencer or trainer or anything like that. I wasn't interested in counting calories, eating sissy salads. I was eating delicious, aristocratic meals, ostentatious meals, every meal of every day, because life's short and you want to eat good food. You don't want to eat sissy salads. And, through the whole process, I realized oh, wait, getting ripped is way easier than what people think. And you don't have to count calories and you don't have to go hungry. You just have to change what you're trying to do. And it's actually kind of fun. And I thought to myself back in 2019, if there's one thing that I could do to change the world, it has nothing to do with tech. It has everything to do with let's teach people how they can look like this without counting calories or going hungry or doing any of the things that they think they need to do. And so that's what I've been doing on Twitter and some other social media platforms full-time for almost 2 years now. It's been a blast. Get to chat with bros like Tyler who spread great energy all the time, and just get to help people. And it's much more rewarding than anything that I did in the corporate sector, because every week somebody tells me, "Hey man, you changed my life. I learned this from you. You're so great." And it's yep, awesome. That never happened when I worked at Google.
Yeah, probably changing lives in other ways at Google, man. Maybe not, who knows for the better or worse, but yeah.
For the better or the worse, who we don't know.
Right, man. This guy wears a shirt less than I do. He's got some epic stories about just going into grocery stores shirtless. One thing I appreciate about you, man, is you're just a real, genuine person. And you were one of the first guys that I saw, bro. You post a lot of the things you eat. It's pizza,
Yeah.
it's steak, and it's like really good food every day. You also say, hey, I don't really work out that hard. I
work out hard. I don't work out that much.
Sorry. So you go very intense, but you don't have you're not going 6 days a week for 2 hours, right? Look like this. So tell us a little bit about these theories, these strategies. It sounds like they started to get developed from some of these people in pro baseball you met, but talk us through this, man. I'm interested in this stuff.
Well, you got to remember that having abs, looking the way that I look, was never the end goal. It's a byproduct of what my end goals are. So I always wanted to have fun in the gym, and I always wanted to enjoy every meal that I ate. So the rules that I set for myself many years ago when I began, this fitness renaissance that I had in my late 20s was you're not allowed to dread your workouts, and you're not allowed to make sacrifice in taste for your foods. So pretty much everybody listening would say, oh, okay, well, if that's all that I have to do, like, sign me up. And it was just a game of Jenga to say, okay, well, I have to eat delicious food. I'm not going to forego delicious food. But if I can find a ingredient switch that tastes exactly the same, but digests better and is better for my gains, I have to switch those ingredients every time. I'm not allowed to eat the bad ingredient food. Oh, if I can stack my pizza with 80 grams of protein, I have to stack my pizza with 80 grams of protein. It tastes just as good as a pizza with 30 grams of protein, 40 grams of protein, but it works better for my intuitive eating system. It helps me and most people who don't have metabolic disorders regulate their appetite better so that they can eat the right amount without counting calories. From a training standpoint, I basically train like an athlete. I go in there, I don't go in there trying to sweat. I don't go in there trying to maximize my pain to maximize my gains. I go in there trying to get stronger and trying to get faster. And a funny thing happens when you focus on performance rather than pain in your training is you have to take breaks, because you realize that, after several weeks of intense workouts, your body's just not capable of working out at an intense capacity anymore, and you need to dial it down. And so the rule that I have for myself is I have to have one workout a week that I don't really want to do. But if it's less than that, I'm probably not pushing myself hard enough. And if it's more than that, I'm probably pushing myself too hard. And I found that just, sticking in that Goldilocks amount of, moderate intolerability is the right amount of intolerability to include within a fitness system. And, you guys saw what I look like, with my shirt off. And I look like that year round. I'm not cutting. I'm not cutting cow. I'm not ever going hungry. It's just like I'm training like an athlete. And that's how I teach people to do it. And especially men, and especially former ex-athletes, they get on my program and they're like, there's just no way it can be this easy. 2 months later, their lives have changed completely.
Yeah, I know personally several people, man, who have gone through your program and told me, yeah, man, I eat delicious food every day. I'm going to the gym less. I used to go 6 days a week. And what you said there, I think hammers home to a lot of people, man, because bro, I was one of these guys like back in my 20s, I'd go out for 6 runs a week thinking I was doing a great job. I'm going to go jogging,
Right.
Hated freaking jogging, man, but I'd go out and do it. Right. Cause I thought, well, that's how you get abs, right? Like that's how you do it. And it's a big misconception, man. And so, yeah, I've talked to a lot of your former clients, actually. Some have been on podcasts, man, that said, yeah, man, it changed my life, right? Like just learning about these things. So it's cool that you can bring that to the masses, man. And I think you have a lot of fun doing it. Is one thing I appreciate about you is you don't take yourself that serious, right? So
well, it's all part of the mindset that I take to life, which is the mindset that I teach for people trying to escape corporate America. Is you need to understand your work capacity, and training at an intense rate helps people understand their work capacity. Oh, I can keep this pace up for 1 mile, but not 2. I can keep this pace up for 1 minute, but not 5. When you push your limits, you know how much you can push yourself, and you know how much you can't push yourself. you also realize what type of work doesn't feel like work. And so if I want to run my own business, I can't burn out, because if I burn out, like it's a one-man shop. It's a one-man show. If I burn out, then it's just not going to work. And so the more I can align what I like to do with how I get paid, I work all the time. Every waking moment of the day, I'm doing something, related to my business or my family. But it doesn't feel like work the way corporate work does. And as long as it doesn't feel like work, you're not going to burn out.
And that's such a great point, man. That kind of hits me and rings true, because, man, I've gone 38 months now without missing a day of tweeting. And if I think about it, I'm probably honest with myself. Yeah, I'm always like doing some kind of work stuff around the day. But dude, my work day today has been like a podcast with you, a podcast with another cool guy, making some YouTube content, talking to a cool client, some things that I really enjoy. So I'm not like waking up being like, crap, man, I have to go do this. It's like, dude, I get to do these things today. It's super fun. And so, yeah, you kind of never burn out when you have that attitude, man. And so you apply that to fitness then too, it sounds like.
Everything. So that's a misconception that people have about work, is they think work has to suck. It's like, have you ever tried to make work fun? Have you ever tried to get compensated for things that you enjoy? Right? People have an entirely incorrect view of fitness, of life, of work, because they think in order for me to make progress, the thing that I'm doing has to be hard. It's like, no, it doesn't. Not at all. Like, if I want to lose fat, I have to eat food that doesn't taste good. Why? Why do you think that? Like, you can eat delicious food and lose fat. If I want to make money, I have to do things I don't like. Why? You can make money doing the things that you like. And so this also feeds into my economics background. I was an economics major at Vanderbilt University. I got almost the lowest possible GPA to graduate with honors. Very strategic in my studying. I did graduate with honors with an economics degree from Vanderbilt. And it struck me when I was learning about supply and demand that when the price of oil goes up, goods cost more and there's less employment, which is like the worst thing that can happen is stagflation. More inflation, more unemployment. And the reverse is also true. When the price of oil goes down, goods cost less and there's more employment, more jobs. And so I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Anything that can help you win twice is rare and should be expanded upon. And so anytime I find a food that tastes good and helps me hit my goals, it's like, wow, that's a double win. Got to double down on that one. Anytime I find a workout strategy that is both more enjoyable and more effective, it's like, got to double down on that one. Anytime I find a work strategy that is both enjoyable and lucrative, it's like, got to double down on that one. And so my mind is constantly looking for ways that I can win twice. And when your mind is constantly looking for ways that you can win twice, you find that your life is full of greater success and you perceive yourself to be working less hard.
Man, that's really powerful, man. So let me ask you this, Alex, because, we've both worked in corporate, right? I was at a large bank and, we got some funny stories about that, but why do you think most people then don't see it the way you see it or see it that way? Because when you say it, it seems very easy to me. Why don't you find things you love and do more of those things? Why don't you find things you like to eat that are that's very simple. But dude, if we look at the masses, 98% of people ain't living like that. So why do you think that is? And then how do you help people break free from that?
Well, it's counterintuitive because the right answer is usually simpler than the wrong answer, which is people don't realize that. Complexity sells, simplicity works, right? So you see Twitter right now is rewarding all these threads, people, these 50 different things I'm doing for fat loss. It's like,
so
you don't need 50 things for fat loss, right?
Yeah.
My diet involves 10 basic things that I do to make sure that I'm consuming delicious protein when I'm hungry. Basically, all those 10 things kind of revolve around that. My training doesn't involve 50 different things. It's like, how do I run faster and lift heavier weights? And how much rest do I need to do that? What exercises can I select so I don't get hurt doing that? And what rep ranges are most appropriate? How many sets should I do in order to do that? you'll find that more successful people need to have a simpler approach to accomplish what they're accomplishing. Otherwise, there'll be too many boxes for them to check for them to accomplish it. And I think the reason why so many people are confused has to do with the way people learn, right? Because people they're born knowing nothing, right? Remember that you're born knowing nothing. And so everything you learn on top of that is an adaptation of knowing nothing. And so people they're born lazy, right? You don't want to do anything. You only want to eat sugar. You want to sit on the couch. And that tends to get people in a bad position. And so the adaptation that they have to make from that is, if I want to be less fat, I have to eat less sugar. If I want to be in better shape, I need to get off the couch. If I want to make money, I need to wake up to my alarm and go to work. And that's the first lesson people learn when they're trying to progress in life. And unfortunately, for many people, it's the last lesson that they learn too. They don't realize that, okay, yes, being completely lazy and just eating Sour Patch Kids on the couch all day, that's not a good way to live. But the opposite of that is also not a good way to live, right? So they start here, the pendulum swings here, and then they don't know how to have it swing back to the middle ground. And the middle ground is actually where you experience the most success with less effort than when it swings all the way to, all work, no play is the way I'm going to live life and have the most success.
Yeah, I think that's really true, man. I mean, and you're taught that. If I really think back, man, it's like the messaging I had when I was young is like, get straight A's, go to college, get straight A's, get a great job with a company, work really hard, work your way up the ladder, work the nights, work the weekends, right? And your message just kind of goes counterintuitive, that work smarter. You don't need to do that, right? Find things that you love that don't feel like work that you can also make money from. So how do you go about?
And one of the great things is like being in good shape, right? You get paid more money to do the same job, most jobs, if you're in good shape, right? So your quality of life is higher, you get paid more money, and you don't have to work as much, right? When I was in corporate America, I was like one of the last people to show up to the office every day. Nobody said anything ever because they knew I was going to the gym in the morning. And they were kind of scared because nobody's going to confront the dude who's 6% body fat, who can bench press twice what they can bench press, about being lazy. Even if they kind of think he might be being lazy, they're just not going to say anything. And they never did for the 10 years that I worked a corporate job.
Man, I think that's like, some people might hear that and take offense to it and be like, well, that's not fair, or that. And that's what I say too, man. I say, look, one of the first things you said, I agree with this, man. And I can laugh at this now. When I was back in corporate, brother, I knew nothing about banking, nothing. I got 4 promotions in 2 years. I ran my entire branch. I had to go ask part-time tellers what to do. I didn't know what I was doing, but you know what I was? I was a jacked dad who had a good attitude and was really energetic, friendly to people. And I kept getting promoted way above what I should have. I can say that now that I'm never going back, right? Yeah, I agree with that. It's a cheat code. And so if you know those are cheat codes, why don't you take advantage of it? I mean, it's human nature, right? Like you're a single guy, or I think you're wifed up now, right? You got a serious,
I have a girlfriend,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for a while on Twitter, you were like, it was pretty kind of my joke with you that you were always on Tinder and talking about these dates you were having, things like that. But people do judge a book by their cover, right? The first thing I'm gonna notice about you when I see you is you're in shape. What does that tell me? You're high disciplined. You like, all these things are going to go through my mind there. So obviously it's, and anybody can take control of this, right? And so why would you not use these things to your advantage, I guess?
Right. And one of the cheat codes that I found in life is anytime you find somebody succeeding in a way that you don't think he or she deserves it, stop, ignore the pain and discomfort that you feel when observing that, because 80%, 90% of people will never be able to learn from somebody that they're jealous or envious of. If you can get over that discomfort and say, wait, that's an anomaly. That person shouldn't be there. He must be good at something. There has to be a reason that that person can have this level of incompetence as I perceive it and be successful. My perception of competence must be incorrect. I need to reformat my definition of what it takes to succeed in this particular domain. And so I had to do this in baseball over and over again, hit my head against the wall. Why are these people doing better than me? Why are these people doing better than me? And when I rewired my mind, everything made more sense. And then in the corporate world, when I was in sales, why are these people who are dumber than me doing better than me? Why are they doing better than me? Why I'm working just as hard as them, because I did work hard in my sales roles. Why are they doing better than me? Oh, you end up learning things, and it forces you to tear down the scaffolding that you built to try to understand your world and erect a more perfect understanding of your world. And that's how I look at life, is we're never going to completely get it, right? Every idea or concept that we have is generally correct if it's good, but it's not 100% correct. And at some point, you're going to encounter life situations that contradict the mental models that you've built to explain the world, and you need to be disciplined enough to disassemble the mental models that you built and reassemble new ones that incorporate the contradictory information that life is throwing at you. Most people can't do it. Most people, when they have cognitive dissonance, their preference is, well, that's just an anomaly. That's just an outlier. And I think one of the benefits that being disciplined has is, okay, I'm going to stick my hand in this pot of boiling water. It's uncomfortable, but I need to do it to get better. I need to overcome this cognitive dissonance, because if I don't, I'm just not going to improve. I'm going to stay making the same mistakes that got me frustrated in the first place. Let me disassemble my mental model, however painful it may be, and let me reassemble something that more closely approximates what I'm seeing.
Man, I'll probably listen back to that several times, man. I appreciate that. And the thing that pops in my head there is, I think it's our ego that protects us a lot, right? Like,
100%.
somebody sees you doing really well at Google, right? And they think, well, he only got the job because he's a former athlete. Their ego wants to.
And that's not incorrect either.
But you know what I mean?
But so what? What can you learn from that?
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing. Right?
Maybe that's mostly true. Well, guess what? You can go to the gym too. You can dial your nutrition in too. You might not be a former athlete, but guess what? Most people don't perceive levels of athletes. So if you're a varsity athlete, but still go to the gym and train regularly, they're going to treat you almost the same in the corporate world as a professional athlete. And there's a lot more varsity athletes than there are professional athletes. And we can all go to the gym, and we can all dial our nutrition in, and we can all get that benefit that I got from being in good shape and speaking well.
That's absolutely right, man. And I think even, there's a tendency, right, where when I first came on Twitter, I had to disassemble a little bit of mine, because, okay, I saw guys like you, Zach Hommel, Jack Colson, a lot of these guys that I'm like, man, could I be like one of them? And my first thought, if I'm very honest, brutally honest, is like, they probably just got better genes than I got, man. They probably just, maybe they're famous in some other way. That's how they got these 30,000 followers. I don't know. Your brain wants to protect you, and then you have to disassemble that. And I think that was the thing that really I started to learn from guys like you, from Zach, from a lot of these other people is, man, it's so petty, and it doesn't take my life where I want to go if I let my ego protect myself and say, well, they're just lucky they got there. No, man, if you disassemble that and I say, what can I learn from a guy like you? What is Zach Hommel doing that I'm not doing right now? What can I learn from that, right? And start to just, man, maybe take lessons from these people that are doing things you want to do and admire them and learn from them. And brother, now I get to quit my corporate job just because I learned from people like you guys along the way. And I don't have any kind of ego to say, man, I still don't really know what I'm doing, but I see people in the space that are doing a great job, and I try and emulate a lot of the things they're doing, put my own spin on it, and I just keep learning, right? And I think you have to tear down your ego to do that.
And you have to realize that your brain wasn't created to see things for what they are. Your brain was created as an energy conservation, self-preservation mechanism. Okay, think about that. Your brain evolved to be an energy conservation, self-preservation mechanism. And so what that means is and me too, everybody, we are all likely to interpret our reality in a way that preserves our ego and limits the amount of energy that we expend. That's why when we see people who are more successful than us, we think, oh, well, he got lucky. He just did that. He just did this one trick. He just did this one thing. Because it conserves energy. So we don't have to try. Oh, I don't have to try because I don't have the genes that he has. I didn't get lucky like that guy. I don't have to try. That's why your brain thinks that. And so if you want to succeed, you have to overcome your brain's natural wiring towards this self-preservation, energy conservation mode. And everybody's brain can revert back to the self-preservation, energy conservation mode, right? So we need to get out of that mode if we want to succeed, or we stay in that mode and we stay frustrated.
And so when people come to you then and they say, well, hey, Alex, do you just have great genes? You just what's it? Maybe a guy hires you for coaching, right? But he doesn't quite buy in yet. How do you help him flip that switch then? Do you kind of just break this down for him and say, hey, here's why you are how you are. Here's what we need to change. What are some of the first steps? Like if a guy's listening to this today and he's just like, yeah, BS, man. Like this guy's just jacked because he was a college athlete and he did this and that, right? Like, what do you tell a guy like that? Or do you think there's a certain percentage of people that just, man, they're just going to kind of have that attitude where they just can't make it, right?
Some people are going, I can give you a million reasons for why that's not true. And 25% of people will ignore every single one of those million reasons because their brain is so committed to believing that they can't do it to conserve energy. I can't help those 25% of people, unfortunately. Only they can help themselves. I can logically show you pictures. I can show you pictures of what I looked like.
Yeah, because you were more jacked. That's true, man. Yeah, I've seen.
Right, like you said, oh, he's got great genetics. It's like my genetics at 36 are worse than my genetics at 26. Can you find me one person whose genetics are better at 36 than 26? Because the human body doesn't work that way. So I have the same DNA but worse than 10 years ago. How come I'm seeing better results with less effort? I probably figured something out. Or if you want to get in the self-preservation, energy conservation mode, and you think, oh, he's on steroids, he's on human growth hormone, he's taking, it's like, okay, well, all I can do is tell you no. I can show you testosterone tests that I've taken, which would not be what they would be if I were taking steroids. And so you have to have some degree of trust with people where they're like, okay, well, you made that transformation over 10 years and it's not because you stuck a needle in your butt. And then, oh, well, he had that athleticism in him. He was a former professional athlete. It's like, how do you think I became a professional athlete? My parents aren't professional athletes. My dad never played sports after the age of 12, right? So, my mom's Chinese, my dad's Jewish. I come from a family of quasi-intellectuals. I do not come from a family of athletes. And so I decided at 14 years old that I was going to become a professional athlete. I was 5'9", 145 pounds, and I decided that I was going to be a professional athlete. So the work that I put in high school, it put me at an advantage because when you build muscle as a teenager, it makes it easier to retain muscle as you get older. That's true. But I was the least talented person on my travel team as a freshman in high school, and I just worked my ass off because I wanted to make the team, right? My coach wanted to cut me because he looked at everybody around me and he said, well, Alex is slower than them. Alex is shorter than them. I'm looking at Alex's parents and they don't indicate that he's going to have some massive growth spurt. So why should I invest in Alex? It's probably, I guess I'll invest in him because he works hard. And that's the only reason why coaches in high school gave me more of a chance than some other person with the exact physical profile that I had, was because I worked hard. And guess what? Working hard year after year in high school got me to where I went from somebody who by no means had the tools to, get a college scholarship to where I actually got drafted to play professionally with that limited skill set. You talk to every single one of my college coaches. They all thought that I was not athletic, right? None of them thought that I was a good athlete, yet I got drafted and played professionally. None of them thought that I was going to become a professional baseball player. They thought, well, he might be a good college player, but that's about it. That's where he's capped athletically. And I exceeded their expectations every year of my life because I worked hard and eventually I started working smart. But most people who I played with at 14, 15, 16 years old had greater athleticism than I did and didn't do much with it.
I think we all have that choice, man, and we talked before one time, and I really loved what you said about if you find things that you're naturally good at, and then you can move up 2 standard deviations. That's something that really stuck with me, right? When you talk about that. And so, finding things that you're naturally good at and don't feel like work is part of it, but man, you can always move up with just sheer work ethic and sheer will. And, I discovered that pretty early with poker, man. I was playing people that were definitely smarter than me. One of the girls I played heads up was Harvard law graduate. IQ way bigger than mine, but I studied off the table every hand we ever play. I just made it my mission and nobody's going to outwork me in this, And then, success finds you there. And I do think a lot of people just cope, man. And they just say, well, he got lucky, he got this, he got that, must be nice, that kind of attitude. And I've kind of just stopped saying I'm going to help those people, man, because you got to help yourself at some point, and then I really want to help you. But you got to take that first step and kind of tone down that ego and say, what can I learn from people, instead of, they're just this or that. I can't do this or that,
You got to be careful that the stories that you tell yourself to help get you through today don't prevent you from being the person that you want to be tomorrow. And that's a lot of challenges in life, is we have coping mechanisms to get through the challenges of today, right? Life is hard. So some people smoke cigarettes because their work is stressful. Some people stress eat because work is stressful. And many people tell themselves narratives that aren't true so that they can cope with the challenges of their existing job situation. They're never going to get out. And the worst situation to be in from a corporate standpoint is when you're working so hard and you're wrecking your body so much that your mind adapts to judging other people by how much they're willing to wreck their body and work hard. Because that is the exact coping mechanism that you see in a lot of these white shoe professions, banking, law, where you're working 70, 80-hour weeks consulting, and you have to tell yourself something to get yourself through the day, and you have to perceive yourself superior to those who haven't made that decision. And a lot of times you end up reorganizing your values to elevate those who've chosen the path of slavery, right? Because you've chosen the path of slavery. And guess what? All that does is guarantee that you're going to stay on that path of slavery.
Stuck.
Right? Yeah,
man, it all starts in the mind. That's pretty powerful, man. I like that. Well, I want to shift gears here a little bit, man, because you are a super fun guy, and I want the people out here that subscribe to my channel to hear a funny story of you. And I think you got a lot of them, man, but you've had some brilliant threads. Can you walk us through, I know you showed up to Zuby's birthday party just shirtless, just looking all jacked, man. I heard that funny story. Tell us about the time you went into Whole Foods, because were you live streaming on Twitter? I remember following along. You're like, hey man, I've been infiltrated, but I'm going to get out. Like, just tell me through the story, how that happened when you went into Whole Foods shirtless. Tell the people, man. It's a fun one.
Well, people assume that the natural state of the human body is wearing a shirt. And once you start working for yourself, you realize that your natural state is wearing whatever the hell you want to wear. And I don't like wearing shirts. I don't sleep with a shirt. I don't train with a shirt. When I'm outside and the weather's good, I don't wear a shirt because that's just how I feel the best. And so I just got done training. I don't bring t-shirts to the gym because my gym doesn't require that you wear shirts. And I needed to pick up food because my friend was coming over for dinner. And I didn't want to stop at my house to grab a shirt because Whole Foods was right around the corner. And so I thought, oh, screw it, I'm just going to go in. and I'm like calculating in my mind. I'm like, okay, so I'm like mapping the place out. I'm like, okay, I just need to get 4 things. I just need to get 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time they say something, I'll probably already have half of it. And then it'll be the same amount of time for them to kick me out as me to check out. So I just got to get halfway there, and I basically won. And so I walk in, and everybody's wearing masks because it's like during COVID, and people are looking at me like, and so I'm just tunnel vision. I'm like, don't make eye contact with anybody. Just grab your stuff. And so I'm grabbing my stuff. I grab 1 thing, 2 things, and then by the time I'm grabbing my 3rd thing, an employee comes up to me and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, oh, he got me. And I'm like, I just need to grab 2 more things and I'll be out of here. And he was just like, what am I going to do? By the time I call security, he's going to be out of here like on his own volition by the time I get somebody to make him leave. So fine. It's exactly as I planned it, right? You need to understand these boundaries. And it's like, well, the cost of enforcing the rule gives you, it's a cost, and it gives you no benefit because he's out of there at the same time. So I'm actually not going to enforce the rule. So I just grabbed the 2 other things, went right to the checkout, and left. And then I wasn't live streaming, but I was maybe like tweeting, and I just took the picture of me with my shirt off, holding the Whole Foods bag. And people were like, Jesus, this guy's crazy. But it was like, well, I didn't have a shirt. I didn't want to wear a shirt, and I wanted food, and I got it, and I paid for it.
I like that story so much. I think it is a bigger lesson though, man, that there's not as many rules in life as these people sell us, right? Like I think you grow up and you're taught you got to stay in the box, you got to play by the, if you want to be successful, you got to do X, Y, Z. I think you really prove in a lot of ways, Alex, that you don't. You can make a lot of your own rules. You can gamify the system a lot. It doesn't make you a bad person. It actually makes you smart and very strategic, right? And you think very strategically about how I can optimize pretty much everything I do. And I think people can learn a lot from that, man. That, you know, so many people are just stuck in this little box and this little way of thinking. And there's just not as many rules as they sell us, man. I mean, I remember when I was telling people I was quitting corporate, they're just like, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to make money? How are you going to, you know, they had a million problems, right? And it's like, I think you're just stuck in this way of thinking. You got to break free from that.
Right. And this is kind of the same thing with the pendulum swing we talked about earlier, is people are born without any concept of rules. You know, small babies, small children have no concept of rules. And so their parents have to teach them rules in order to not break things, in order to not, you know, act out, in order to not get in trouble, you know, with the law or with teachers or something like that. And so you start out not learning any rules, right? Your parents say, well, if you don't follow rules, you're going to end up in jail, which is true. You will end up in jail if you just don't follow any rules. And so then people in the education system is a big culprit of this, is people overcorrect and they learn that they need to follow every rule, right? And the people around them, and a lot of the people who learn to follow every rule grow up in white collar communities where people have these, like, you know, soul crushing jobs, but they make decent money. And everybody around them kind of does the same thing. They just kind of toe the line, you know, don't act up, don't stick their neck out.
It's safe, right?
Their
it's
money.
A safe path.
It's safe.
Yeah.
It's safe. And their entire family and their entire communities do safe things like that. There's a middle ground, like everything else. And it's like, okay, well, there are rules and you need to follow most rules most of the time, but there are exceptions to these rules. And you start paying attention, who gets the exceptions to these rules? What rules are not enforced as much as the other rules? How can I position myself so that some of these rules are not enforced against me as much? And then that's kind of the cheat code. It's like, well, if you're in good shape, people let things fly a little bit more than if you just look like a slob, right? Like if I'm walking slow and I'm 50 pounds overweight going into Whole Foods, like, probably it wouldn't have worked out as well. And so if you pay attention to the enforcement of rules, that's where you realize, like, okay, these rules are not as firm as I initially perceived them to be. Most people, they either follow no rules and they end up in jail by the time they're 17 years old, or they follow every rule and they end up in jobs that they hate their entire lives. The people who follow some rules, if they do it appropriately and effectively, have the most enjoyable lives.
I would agree with that, man. I also think, do you think there's an element, because this is what I think of why people hate on you or are jealous of you, or why I've been mailed hate letters since I quit corporate, is the people that
have? I've not. That's one thing
I've been mailed multiple hate letters from people telling me I'm this or that. I think I'm arrogant because I don't wear a shirt as much. Basically, but what I think it boils down to, is I hear you talk about this, is I think it goes back to that coping mechanism of they've followed all the rules. And instead of learning that, hey, maybe I can swing back and I don't have to, they want to protect themselves and say, well, it's not fair. It's BS. Like, I think that's why people hate Joe Rogan, right? Like he's a bro, but dude, he just signed a $100 million contract. You're not supposed to be a gym bro and make $100 million. They don't like that. You know, they want you to do it the 90-hour work week because that's the way they've always learned it. Right. And so I think it goes back to a lot of that, man.
If you want to piss people off, skip the line that they've waited in their entire adult life and get better results than they got. That just really eats away at people's soul, because it forces them to question what they're doing with their lives. And most people don't want to question what they're doing with their lives. They want to assume that the sacrifice that they've made in waiting in line is the only decision that is prudent. And everybody who doesn't make that decision either got lucky or is cheating or is just not playing by the rules. And so that's why you see a lot of these mainstream media people really hate on new media who built their following through social media, because they didn't get that job at the Washington Post. They didn't get that internship at the New York Times, and they're doing 100 times better than the people who did. They didn't wait in that line. They made their own line, right?
Yeah.
And nobody likes that. Nobody likes to be shown that they wasted time on their own volition to pursue something that has a lower ceiling than the alternative.
And yeah, that's true. And then there becomes that sunk cost fallacy where I think people are looking at it and they're like, well, I'm too far in, right? I'm too far in the traditional media. I want to protect myself. I think we see that a little bit with COVID right now, right? There's still people out there that won't admit that, you know, XYZ, like it's pretty proven, right? But they just won't let go of it. And I guess that goes back to ego too, man. But that's probably a different.
Yeah, and it goes with everything. You know, you have QAnon people who are like, they still think that like Trump's going to be president. It's like, dude, Biden's term's over in 2 years.
Yeah,
so, like
that stuff is really
the clock's running out. I mean,
yeah.
You know, I even thought this like when Trump was trying to challenge the election results. You know, even if it was a legitimate grievance, it's like, dude, 20 years after 9/11, nobody can explain to me why those buildings came down. You really think they're going to figure out what happened with an election in 6 weeks? Like, no, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
But people, they're stuck to that fixed cost investment that they made in believing a certain narrative, and they're just going to try to fit square pegs into round holes until they end up 6 feet deep.
Man, well, I want to tell everybody out there listening to this right now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, contact Alex Feinberg. He can unlock your brain to some of these things, man. I enjoy every chance I get to chat with you, brother. I have so many takeaways, and just, I love the way that you view life, man. I really do. I respect you a lot. I admire you a lot. I learn from you a lot, and super grateful for you coming on here. I'm going to link everything Alex does below, guys. He's the greatest follow on Twitter. He won't put out a thread that says 98 things you need to do today. He'll put out a thread that's like 4 or 5 that'll actually better your life. You know, maybe that may not be the best for the algo, but it's the best for your life. I'll tell you that much.
Exactly. Thanks, Tyler. This is a blast.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate you coming on. You want to give one last word to the people, man?
No, just follow me. My DMs are open. I keep them open, and I will keep them open for the foreseeable future. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. I have info products that you can check out if you just want to read a very simple, this is what I do. You know, the 99% of people who are satisfied with the purchases are like, this is amazing and straightforward. You have no fluff. You cut right to it, which is exactly how I think and how I talk. The 1% of people who want complexity are like, what are all the citations? What are all this? Like, not my audience. You get a refund. Don't bother me. I just tell you the truth as simply as possible. I deliver fast red pills. And if your brain is oriented towards learning things quickly and switching your frame of reference to just achieving fast results, follow me, DM me, let's work together.
Awesome, man. I love that. Although I check the YouTube demographics. We only have like 3% of females, but you 3%, Alex is off the market now. Sorry, guys. I know you saw that shot of the 6-pack, ladies, but the 3% is probably like my mom and my sister, so it probably doesn't matter. But man, I really appreciate you coming on here, brother. You always drop a lot of wisdom, a lot of insight, challenge the way people think, and I love that, man. So everybody out there, give my man Alex a follow, fire him a DM, buy some of his products. He literally has a great recipe book, fat loss book. He's got everything that you guys would need. Check him out, man, and go be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Let's go have the greatest day of our lives, baby. Thanks for tuning in.